Now, we've known that recently Dr. Oz has had Senate hearings, and a lot of people have become concerned over the last probably few months with whether or not Dr. Oz is actually full of shit. And now we know, based on scientific evidence, that he in fact is. There was a study published in the British Medical Journal that examined the healthcare advice given both by the Dr. Oz show and the popular daytime show, The Doctors. And here are the findings of that study. They randomly selected 40 episodes from each show, and they looked at 479 different recommendations that were made both by Dr. Oz and by the doctors. 479 by Dr. Oz, 445 by the doctors. Wow. In the Dr. Oz show, evidence supported only 46% of the claims that he made, so less than half. Evidence directly contradicted 15% of the claims that he made.
That's the biggest problem.
Yeah, and there was absolutely no clinical evidence about 39% of the claims. He just made them up. Also on the doctors, evidence supported 63% of the claims. It contradicted 14%, and there was no evidence found in 24%. So not as bad of a track record, but still pretty embarrassing.
But the 14%, 15%, that's basically the same, and better than 1 in 8 times that he says to do something. It's not just that we don't know. But I'll give him a pass on most of the we don't knows. But the 1 in 8s is, a less of a pass because he might be right or some, or they might be completely innocuous. The doctors frequently tell you to go to a doctor. Right.
Yeah. The doctors do. Dr. Oz does not.
Not much evidence that will help.
1 in 8? Wrong. I mean, wrong. Like how many?
The opposite.
The opposite. Like literally, no, don't do that. No, don't drink milk. When you have that, you'll die.
So not a lot of people might know this, but Dr. Oz is actually Turkish. He's there's like 7 Turkish Americans in the country, and 4 of us are talk show hosts. Okay, and so Jesus cut all their mics. Okay, we're done with this. What's all this anti-Turkish talk on the show, okay? No, Dr. Oz is one of the most respected doctors in the country. You should trust everything he says, word for word.
And by the way, also, the 63%, or whatever it was, 46% for Dr. Oz.
46% for Dr. Oz.
Well, yeah, exactly. That could mean a lot of different things. It could mean that there's been 20 different meta-analyses of studies that have been done all over the world of huge sample sizes that support it. Or it means that there was one test of 12 people in Austria back in 1973, and that supports it.
Or some of it is so vague that,
exactly, supports is incredibly vague.
He might say something like, and don't make sure that you eat well and exercise. And right there, of course, that has to go into that's supported by evidence pile.
Yeah, I need more evidence before I start doing that.
Yeah, so you guys remember when John Oliver, his amazing talk show, he actually changed the name of the Dr. Oz show to check this shit out with this guy named Mehmet. Because that's really a more accurate title of the show.
That's racist.
I mean,
I almost named my cat Mehmet.
Is that right?
Oh wow, how funny! But this is something that's important to remember. It's easy for us to sit here and roll our eyes and go, yeah, nobody buys into what Dr. Oz says. Nobody buys into what the doctors say. But 2.9 million daily viewers of Dr. Oz. Think about how many people that is. And a lot of these people, they may be able to pay their cable bill, but they might not be able to pay for medical advice with every little thing. They're probably not going to the doctor all the time. And they go, Dr. Oz told me to do it. He is a board-certified cardiothoracic surgeon. Maybe I should trust him. Don't trust him.
Okay, so I think a lot of people do trust him. I don't think that's even close. I think a lot of people watch the show and and he's a very pleasant guy. And what people might not know is how good a surgeon Dr. Oz was and is actually, right? He's an excellent heart surgeon, one of the best in the country, okay? Now, that's why it's profoundly disappointing, the direction that he has gone. Look, if you're gonna do a show about medical advice, I'll give you 1% as a margin of error, but you should be right 99% of the time. It's not something you play around with. Oh, you got cancer. I was right 46% of the time on how to treat you.
It's not that hard to do. Right. I mean, these shows have writers, they have researchers, they have people that get paid every day to fact check.
Yeah, but I think it is probably really hard to do and I think it's unrewarding from a television point of view if you do it well.
It is unrewarding.
Because most of it is going to be, that sounds incredibly complicated. We need to do more tests.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
you know,
and by the
that's,
way,
like,
if
that's how you're going to go on 97. That's because that's what a responsible doctor would say.
If you were to just provide people with what we know actually helps you to be healthy in terms of diet and in terms of exercise, it would be a very short show and it would be the same show every day. But people don't want that. They want some new berry from the foothills of Andorra every week. They want something new, some different way to organize fats, carbohydrates, and proteins.
Oh, new berry.
New berry. Yes, they want
That's
some new
from Middle
superfood.
Earth, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I
It's
thought-
the
I
lembas
thought
bread.
there was like
They want something new every time, but unfortunately, it takes research to determine if it's actually helpful.
At a certain point, though, and this is the argument that I hear over and over again that I get really frustrated with, which is, well, that's what the people want to see, so we're just giving them what they want to see. At a
I'm not
certain
saying it
point-
justifies it,
no,
but I'm
I
saying that that's
know.
what it is.
And but where does the buck stop? Where does the responsibility lie? We are circle jerking ourselves if we're only being fed what we want to hear. At a certain point, if somebody has the expertise, they are responsible, which is why we saw him in Senate hearings. They are responsible for providing accurate evidence. And if that makes for a boring show, maybe there shouldn't be a Dr. Oz show.
That's exactly right. And in those hearings, it was honestly embarrassing because he said, well, in order to entertain people, you have to say things like, it's a miracle drug.
Yeah, you have to
Right?
stretch the
And he
truth.
said, it's TV. That's why we use these big flamboyant words to capture people's attention. And it's not necessarily intended to be truthful.
And it's like everybody, everybody in Hollywood is in on that conversation. Unfortunately, everybody in Middle America is not in on that conversation. And so they're looking at this as if it should be a gold standard because he is a well-respected cardiothoracic surgeon. One thing that the study in the BMJ pointed out that's important to note too is that there's no way to really go in and look, and they weren't able to report on this, how many of those claims that were stated by Dr. Oz or by the doctors were based on conflict of interest? How many of them were because some company gave him a huge amount of money to promote some sort of vitamin or nutraceutical or, bogus treatment? That's
So
another
Dr.
huge
Oz, in his
problem.
very weak defense on that count during the hearing, said, no, I don't profit directly from these things. And oftentimes when they say, as seen on the Dr. Oz show on the internet, I didn't sanction that, I'm not making any money off of that. His defense was, no, we just make money from the ratings.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I pump things up, we get, everybody excited, 2.9 million people watch it, we make a ton of money. And the money that those guys make from their fake miracle cures, that's their business, not my business. And is that true for every show? We don't know, right?
So irresponsible.
Right, but that's what Dr. Oz says. Now, I believe I've done a great job of showing our lack of bias here, because Dr. Oz actually performed heart surgery on my uncle.
Really?
And you could argue saved my uncle's life. Nonetheless, I just threw him under a bus. Okay,
Good job.
so that's
now
how
need
we
a good
roll
surgeon.
over here.